Putin's nightmare tank fleet would wipe out NATO forces in World War III. Russia's enormous tank fleet would be a nightmare for NATO and would overwhelm its forces in the event of World War III, a military expert has warned. Vladimir Putin's massive military variety would be too strong for the West, including the UK, according to Petri Makala. Despite some of Moscow's tank models being built during the Soviet era in the 1950s and 60s, they are still deadly and pose a huge threat. But most NATO countries have reduced their tanks to a few or one main type in their forces. Petri explained, Russian tactics rely on concentrating an overwhelming force to a focal point, something the rather small Western tank fleets have a hard time countering. Also, Russian tank and motorized rifle formations have vastly greater indirect firepower at their disposal than their Western counterparts. In a modern peer-level war, the few slightly better Western tanks that could be sent to the fight would meet numerically superior Russian formations that rain artillery and rocket fire every step of the way. The military analyst went on to explain that countering this deadly attack would be a nightmare for NATO forces because they do not have the necessary armory to fight back. He added, counterattacking against a Russian tank army would be a nightmare. The West lacks artillery and the numbers to overmatch a dug-in mechanized force the size of a corps or bigger. Luckily, Russia wouldn't quite be able to steamroll across Europe and occupy it entirely, Petri claims. But this still wouldn't be good news as it could result in a stalemate. Petri continued, Russia can't win, not in a sense of occupying Europe. But it can take on the forward-deployed NATO forces and take some ground. NATO just doesn't have the necessary artillery to counter, and coupled with Russia's inability to occupy, it could result in a stalemate. Luckily, the West is moving in the right direction and building more robust forces in Europe. The UK's tank fleet has been slightly neglected, but still the Challenger 2 is a very potent platform, Petri said. Russia's tanks are less advanced than a lot of Western tanks such as the Challenger 2. Moscow has a large fleet and it's retained the systems from 50-60s to beef up numbers. Even these vintage death machines still require proper anti-tank weapons to take them out. Most modern battle tanks used in the world are 1970s developments upgraded. Even the US has 50s-60s vintage tanks, such as the M60. But Petri said that in a one-on-one battle, Russia is at a disadvantage. He concluded, they lag behind the latest Western tanks like Abrams M1A2 SEV2, Leopard 2A7 and the upcoming Challenger 2 update have an edge in optics, accuracy on the move, ergonomics, crew protection etc. All modern main battle tanks kill each other, but one-on-one Russian tanks have a disadvantage. Syrian testers find new ways to improve the drone tank before mass production began, and the industry is now working to increase the Uranium 9's range, response time and